Good afternoon. I call to order the special meeting of the San Bernardino International Airport Authority. I believe we have a quorum. We have a quorum for the Airport Authority. Could we have a roll call, please?
Surely. Please state your name from the record. From the City of Colton.
Richard De La Rosa. Jack Woods.
Thank you. From the City of Loma Linda. Thank you. From the City of Highland.
Penny Lilburn.
Thank you. And from the City of San Bernardino.
Carrie Davis.
Virginia Marquez.
Jim Mulvihill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll turn the time over now to for opening. We will go into closed session, and then we will report after we recess from closed session back to open session, and then we will adjourn the SBIAA at that time after we go into closed session and then return. Turn the time now over to Supervisor. Any public comments?
For closed session.
Thank you. Supervisor?
Thank you very much, Mayor. At this time, I call to order the meeting of the IVDA for this September 12th, 2018. Madam Clerk, would you call roll?
Certainly. Please state your name for the record. From the City of Colton.
Richard De La Rosa. Jack Woods.
Thank you very much. From the City of Loma Linda.
Dusty Rigsby. Ovi Popescu.
Thank you very much. From the County of San Bernardino, 5th District.
Josie Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. And from the City of San Bernardino.
Carrie Davis.
Virginia Marquez.
Jim Mulvihill.
Thank you very much.
What about City of Highland?
Well, that's right. Highland is not on IVDA.
Okay, but did they call her? Yes. Okay, all right, very good. All right, with this, we now will recess to closed session, and before we do, is there anyone from the public wishing to come forward and speak on an item on closed session? Seeing no one, I will, at this time, call recess to closed session. Thank you. We'll be back.
We've now reconvened open session for San Bernardino International Airport Authority special meeting. At this time, I ask the council if there's anything to report from closed session for SBIAA. Thank you. The SBIAA meeting is adjourned. Turn the time
Thank
now
you.
over to Supervisor Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. At this time, I will call to order the IVDA open session. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? As we place our hand over our heart, think of our men and women in uniform, holding the doors of freedom open with their lives, with their heart, with their energy, and their dedication. Together we begin and say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Any items to be added or deleted from the agenda, Mr. Burrows?
No items, ma'am.
I will. All right, at this time, any reportable action from closed session? Thank you very much, legal counsel. Let's see here. Any informational items, Mr. Burrows?
We'll actually consolidate that down to one. If we can get the overhead up, I'd like Mr. Gibbs to give you a brief overview on airport development. We have a few items on your agenda today, and we wanted to give you some real-time updates. Mark, if you would.
Thank you, Mike. There's quite a few projects taking place on the airfield right now, and just wanted to touch base on a few of the more significant ones that are taking place. Currently, there's a rehabilitation taking place of a lot of the ramp areas around the airport. That includes repairing little cracks throughout that entire 60-acre ramp area, and that also includes the joint seals in between them. Mr. Harris has been a busy man out there making sure that the contractors are staying on top of it and doing a great job. In addition, one of the other items taking place out there is our corporate citizens Unical continue to invest in your airport. So they've currently got 2 projects taking place where they are improving parking areas where they can move aircraft onto. One of those is east of the control tower in a vacant field, and another one is north of their first lot that they developed, which is over on the far northeast end of the airport. I don't have that on the overhead for you today. But the airport continues to invest in positive long-term improvements that increase revenue and reliability on the airport. And that reliability piece, to speak to that for just a moment, the airport has an instrument landing system, so aircraft can land when there's clouds out or in the rain or if it's foggy out. And tomorrow a new procedure takes place that the FAA has designed for the runway, and that's going to lower what are called the minimums. So instead of it being 498 feet of cloud cover, now they can land on the runway when it has 250 feet of cloud cover, which again is important as the airport continues to increase in activity. It increases the reliability of aircraft being able to get here, even when weather is bad. The FedEx project continues to move forward, and have a little slideshow here for you of some of the progress taking place and what that is looking like. So this is a picture of the south side of the airport. This was old dilapidated pavement that is starting to take shape. You can see the roller decks that are placed outside of the project area. And this is the associated truck ramp that is new on the south side of the building. It includes a dock, cover, new roll-up doors. And there have been a lot of improvements inside the hangar as well. That includes conveyors, these blue things that are called extendos that extend to the backs of trucks, and includes a lot of roller deck. You can see this extends the length of the building. It's quite a significant improvement and investment into the hangar itself. Mr. Harris has been very busy on this project as well. There have been improvements that FedEx has invested in, and there have been a lot of improvements that the airport has invested in. And that includes quite a long list of things, such as upgrading the entire electrical backbone to it, changing out the lights throughout the large facility, concrete improvements, doors, restrooms, break room, a new pedestrian entrance for the 60 new employees that are going to be coming to the facility as well. And as these investments continue, we're trying to keep pace with the growth and activity taking place at the airport. Here's one example of that. This is a timeline taken from the air traffic control tower logs. And these are the different commercial, this is broken down by year, the number of commercial aircraft operations at the airport. And you can see the latest, which is 2018, that's through August, and we've seen quite a dramatic increase in the number of commercial flights coming through the airport. The same thing has taken place in cargo since 2015 when we started receiving cargo operations at the airport. This is how the statistic is measured throughout the industry, and it's the air cargo landed weight in millions of pounds, which is how it's tracked by the FAA. You can see last year was our best year, and this year so far we've increased about fourfold to date. A lot of that has to do with UPS operations. They started the year with a single daily flight, and that quickly increased to 2 daily flights before the year is out. We'll be having approximately 8 to 10 daily flights in November and December from both UPS and FedEx. And that concludes my report.
Is that
No
it?
further reports.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions, board members? Hearing none. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent calendars.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Mayor Rigsby, second from Councilwoman Marquez. Any comments? Any opposition? It is so ordered. Moving on to discussion item number 7. Let's see here, give me a minute. All right, item number 7 is to consider and adopt proposed budget adjustments for the fiscal year 2018-2019. Mr. Garay, if you'd be so kind as to present this item.
And adopt proposed budget adjustments for this fiscal year, 2018-19. The proposed adjustments modify the IVDA Joint Powers Authority budget to reflect estimates and changes in the conditions as noted in the staff report. On page 41, you will see the proposed budget adjustments table. We have 2 accounts that are affected. The Capital Projects Fund, Mountain View Interchange Design, and the Capital Projects Fund, Tippecanoe Avenue. The change will affect both those accounts. The first account, the Mountain View Interchange Design, originally budgeted for $600,000. We're proposing to reduce that amount by $300,000 to end up with a $300,000 budget. The second account, Capital Projects Fund Tippecanoe Avenue, with a $1 million budget, is to increase that by $300,000, the same amount, for a final $1.3 million budget after adjustment. The reason or the explanation for the first adjustment to the Mountain View Interchange Design is that we have additional funding available to fund that particular project. That way we can reduce the amount of the budget to be able to transfer $300,000 to the second account, the Tippecanoe Avenue. That
Real quick, where's the additional funding coming from?
It'll be grant funding from Loma Linda.
Okay.
This is the Caltrans grant that we collectively went to for
Thank
the
you.
interchange widening, and that has been awarded. Therefore, we don't need $600,000 this
Speak a
year.
little louder into the microphone, please.
So we don't need the additional spend this year because Caltrans has fully funded construction on the additional lane widening on Mountain View, which is underway now.
So the design work is still costing $600,000. We're just not paying for it with our funding.
Correct?
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Correct.
Okay.
One
So-
more-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The grant from Caltrans, is that a matching grant, or is that fully funded?
Yeah, so it actually fully funds all of the construction, which was a great benefit from Caltrans District 8, and therefore the design is the only cost incurred by Loma Linda and IVDA under that contract. And that $300,000 will be plenty to fund that.
Continue, Mr. Garay.
Thank you. That allows us to increase the second account, the Tippecanoe Project Capital Fund, by $300,000, and the reason for that increase is due to getting an accurate bidding quote from the construction company versus the amount that we had estimated when we developed the budget. We developed the budget, we put $1 million down, that was our best estimate at the time. Now that we've got the bid in, it comes in at $300,000 more, and which is the reason that we're increasing this amount to $1.3 million. Yes.
And what project is that specifically?
This is the Tippecanoe Avenue. This is the entrance from Tippecanoe.
Which is
into the
item
airport.
number 8 coming up.
Yes.
Okay.
And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
Questions, board members? Hearing none, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to move item 7. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any opposition? Item number 7 is approved. Moving on to item number 8, which is to approve a construction contract with Jurgensen Construction in an amount not to exceed $1,603,064.81 for the construction of Gate 1 Access Road and appropriate a 10% contingency budget of $160,306. Mr. Harris, if you would be so kind.
Thank you. There we go. This project is, the goal of this project is to arrange for cargo trucks to enter and leave the airport in a more orderly fashion in a way that doesn't impede movement on the interior at the airport. To do this, we're modifying the existing Gate 1 to accommodate truck deliveries from Tippecanoe Avenue. On the screen at the bottom arrow, there's going to be a right-hand turn off of northbound Tippecanoe to get off of the actual road itself and away from traffic. As it continues north, it will go into a security kiosk area where trucks that are allowed to be here will continue on into the interior of the airport. If they do not belong here, there is an exit at the top arrow that will allow them to exit back onto North Tippecanoe. The improvements include 0.8 of a mile of additional roadway between the airport and the Stater Brothers parking lot. And that will get them to the ramps and then ultimately to the UPS and the FedEx facilities. To exit this, they come back through the kiosks, security kiosks, then they have an option of turning right onto the North Tippecanoe Avenue, or they can continue down to an existing signal, and they will enter the roadway there and travel south on Tippecanoe to get to the freeways. This project was designed by Hernandez Kroon. We publicly bid the project. We had 4 bids. 2 of the bids came in very close to each other. Jurgensen Construction was the apparent low bidder. We're lucky to have them. They've been working on the airport now for about 4 years, and they've been a very successful contractor. So this item requests that the board approve a construction contract, and as you note on the bid log, they did have an error in their mathematics. It cost about $3,000 more. They had a slip on their abacus, I guess. And very good bids. I think it's around $39,000 between the two, so that's well under half of 1% of difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Any questions, board members?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Mr. Harris, I see the staff report that it includes the 4 bids. Anyone from the city of San Bernardino apply?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Speak right into the
I'm
microphone.
reading the staff report, and there are 4 companies that responded. Did any companies from the city of San Bernardino respond?
No.
None. Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, these are sealed bids, right? They have to come in at a certain time?
Yes, they are. They're publicly opened by the clerk of the board.
Okay. And there's no, I don't know, does the agency have any ability for local consideration?
In this instance, when we update our construction policies and procedures, we have not included local preference. The majority of our work on a year-to-year basis is often grant-funded, and many of the grant agencies do not allow for that. If it pleases the board, we will have the policies and procedures on consideration at the next meeting in October, and we can bring it back up for this next year.
And this budget amount is grant awarded?
This one is not.
it's
This is
not.
locally funded improvements here, but in recent years, the majority of our work is grant-funded, federal EDA primarily, and they do not allow for local preference. Our procedures have not included that. If that is of interest to the board, we can bring back some recommendations.
So in the future, if the board wishes to establish some type of policy for local consideration, we would have to do that.
Yes.
So I think that is important for the
Yes.
JPAs. I mean, I see a bid here from the city of Colton or a company in Colton, but if we don't have the ability to consider that, then maybe we need to come back and revisit that as just a discussion item. at
I
least
agree.
To see what we can do for the JPAs, especially a JPA member, to have some type of preference, or
Certainly.
priority.
It is a program, a host of programs we've explored in the past, and can bring that back for future consideration.
Thank you.
Relative to those comments, Mr. Burrows, I would also appreciate it if you'd go back and look at any existing policy that may be in place regarding local preference? Because I remember going through this and wanting this years ago. I was very specific in regards to giving local preference. I remember that even at the time, I think Assemblymember Cheryl Brown was running for office, and we went and spoke to her because it turned out that she was interested in, or she was concerned about the lack of local preference being a priority in regards to, I think it was a 5%, I don't remember if it was 3 or 5%. And only to find out that it's the state that ultimately has jurisdiction over the amount of local preference percentage that can be considered on a project. So I remember that, and I bet you there's something in our policy that is active that we're not tapping into.
Certainly, and I'll work with legal counsel on a full review.
All right, points well made and taken.
I would just point out that I was looking at this, 2 of the companies are local. So at some point, you're going to have to decide, is it good enough to be local, or do I need to take someone local even though it's costing us more money? And I think the airport in this case made a decision where it turned out to be a local company that was cheaper. So I'm not sure in this particular case it's even really relevant. And then I guess when we make a discussion about local, what is considered local? Do we now start fighting about, well, I want a company from Loma Linda instead of some other city? Is local Inland Empire, or is it, it can go in all sorts of directions. So I think in the end, clearly the staff went through the procedure that indicated that we chose the best company based on price.
If I may respond, and I get that. What I consider a benefit is a JPA member having at least some type of consideration.
A competitive opportunity.
Yes, and yeah, not to overspend. Yeah, we need to pay the best, whoever bidded the best price, but some component of that has to be JPA. Corona is not a JPA, so I'll just say it out loud. I don't really care about.
So in other words.
Well, wait, let me finish. I don't care about who out of the JPA gets it, but the JPA member of this long-standing relationship and this long commitment to being a JPA member, that's what I'm talking about.
So I know we're not discussing the process, so maybe give preference in a way where maybe the people who submit bids are all local, and then we're not competing with people out from other areas.
Could be.
Okay.
Right. Perhaps that is something that, Mr. Burrows, you could bring back in an item that we can discuss. Ultimately, keeping in mind why the formation of the JPA, why we sit here, that has to be the driver and the catalyst. So if there's at this time no objection to this item, I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Hearing none, it is so ordered. The item is approved, and with that, perhaps if I have a consensus to give direction, that Mr. Burrows can look at whatever existing or non-existing policy we may or may not have, and or bring forward some suggestions in which we can begin to consider a local preference when it comes to the awarding of contracts.
Duly noted. We will do so.
Is there a consensus to give that
Yes.
direction?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you
Through
very
the chair.
much. Yes, Mayor?
I would encourage also that there is also a need to make sure that there's a ability to perform, that we don't sacrifice that, because there oftentimes are
Right.
needs for a sense of urgency in addition to the desire to have local firms be able to have the opportunity to perform, but we also need to make sure that there's not going to be putting at risk some project that would require that there's maybe a need for someone that can expedite. So
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you
Quality.
very much. And with that direction, I will move on to item number 9, which is to approve amendment number 1 to the cooperative agreement with Hillwood for hangar number 795. Mr. Gibbs, if you'd be so kind, once again.
This is a project that took shape very, very quickly, and this is
Please speak right into the microphone.
the.
No.
Hello, hello. There we are.
There it
just
is.
wasn't on.
Thank you. So this is the FedEx hangar, and it was converted to cargo use. It was a project that developed very quickly, and in order to be able to deliver this project, we wanted to put our best foot forward. FedEx is an important company to us that we've since entered into a long-term 10-year lease for this facility on. To that extent, the project moved very, very quickly. We got it out the door, got it funded while it was still under design. And the dollars that were allocated to this project originally were conceptual, and it was a good estimate at the time. But as the project unfolded, there were some additional items as the project continued being finalized. Again, it was a very quick process that started in the month of April. To that end, the project has gone very, very well and is on schedule for delivery to the customer on October 1st. At that point, they're going to begin operating from the facility. So there were a few items, in particular, an aircraft gate, and the way these guys operate is somewhat different than UPS. They have a tether that actually straps down the nose wheel of the airplane at the gate as a company policy, as well as in-ground power. And some of the initial budgeting for that was unforeseen, if you will. There was a plug budget number, but it wasn't what was actually experienced when they received bids, particularly for those two more expensive items. Some of the other project items on here that added to the budget were some minor electrical equipment, plumbing, utilities, and fixtures, some of the general conditions of the project itself that increased along with the additional improvements to the hangar. And there were some other concrete and structural modifications required to turn over this facility for use by FedEx. So with that in mind, the budget, we're asking for a budget increase of $500,000 that would bring the total project cost to $3.5 million instead of $3 million. And we are seeking your approval to finalize this increase in the budget to be able to deliver the project to FedEx by October 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Questions, board members?
I have a question.
Mayor?
You've itemized about $345,000. Where's the extra $155 going?
So at the time of the drafting of the staff report, the project is still underway, and we built in additional contingency in the unlikely event that there are some additional cost items as we deliver this, as we move closer to that finalization date.
And is that stipulated in the item?
I'm sorry?
Is that explanation stipulated in the item? Because I'm looking for it.
I don't believe that it is. We were asking for $3.5 million. What is itemized is in the background information. If you total those up, they come to about $350,000 with the additional $150,000 of contingency should it be needed.
Right. This item is an amendment to consider an additional $500,000. My question is relative to the mayor's question, is that if on page 49 you add the 234, the 14, the 10, the 44, and the 39, he's saying that it is short of the 500,000. My question is that shortfall identified in the item?
No, it is not called out specifically in the item. And you're correct, and Mayor Rhodes is also correct. It's not broken out in that fashion.
So, Mike, at this point, I don't have a problem with this. My thing is that we don't have an identified expense, what we're going to spend that money on.
So if you will, indulge me, if you look at the bottom of page 49,
Yes?
under the terms of the agreement, this agreement is with Hillwood as our
Yes.
master developer. Hillwood is going to be compensated for the actual cost of construction, actual cost.
Okay.
So if the project maintains its course on schedule and under budget, at the completion, we will have a reconciled report back to this body to disclose what the final cost was at the delivery of the completed project. So it's an amendment with Hillwood to deliver it based off of actual cost.
So then there is an explanation for the balance.
It will not tell you what the final cost is, because that's
Correct.
not
No,
known.
then that's not what I'm asking.
10%.
I'm just wanting to ensure that Mayor Rigsby's question is answered.
Understood, and we will clarify that upon completion, to your point.
All right, Mr. Popescu.
So in case you end up needing to use the $150,000, would the expensing of those amounts be brought back to us with explanation as to how you're spending it?
The actual agreement as master developer would give them the ability to make those changes, to deliver it on time, up to an amount not to exceed $3.5 million as written here. However, that's only if the improvements are required to deliver the final product to FedEx. They are required to present to IVDA and us through this body what the final cost is upon completion.
I understand
that was in
that
the
part.
original item under the
Sure.
$3 million.
I understand that part, but if they end up having to spend an extra $150,000, would that come back to us, explain as an explanation right now, as an amendment? That's my question.
So it's not here today?
No.
At the
Moving
time that's
future.
needed, yes, it would be
Okay.
brought back to you.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Yes, okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Is that the practice that you've used in the past? where
So I'm
we
trying to
budget-
differentiate this from what would be a normal, quote-unquote, construction project. This is Hillwood functioning as our master developer, and they have, under that role, a process, proven
Yes.
process, to do an amount not to exceed budget, subject to this requirement, that the final cost is reported back to this body. So that makes it different than the item you just looked at, which was a project that this body let as a public works project that was, a design bid build. That's the difference here, because this is a different procedure to deliver a project on a fast-track basis to design and complete the construction under a developer role, if that helps the explanation.
So we're not leaving monies hanging out there for them to use?
You are not. Hillwood does not get to keep $155,000.
No, I know, but if you're going to give me, money to spend, I'm going to spend it. Unless it's itemized like the mayor said, as
Again,
you give it to us. I'm
they-
just saying, is this the practice you've used for other projects, or are we just explaining this today for the benefit of that
This
mayor brought
is
it up?
our practice with
Okay.
Hillwood as our master developer.
Okay.
Under a master development contract, there are discretionary privileges, if you will, that have been earned over a long period of time that then makes that award to in this case, to Hillwood.
Correct.
Any other questions? I've got one question, but I'm going to wait. Yes, Mayor?
Yeah, to me, I look at it as almost like a bar tab or something. You were just replenishing the petty cash or whatever it is that they need to do their project. But my question is, I've noticed since I've been here, having been on the
By the way, welcome, this is your first official IVDA.
yeah, as a
You're already causing trouble, by the way.
I'm not just a backup.
All right,
So,
all right.
I've been on Sandbag for a number of years, and everything is down to the penny. And here I've noticed that most of your budgets are rounded off to the nearest 100,000. And I think that's fine if that's your practice, and then you reconcile it at the end as opposed to making it exact at the moment of appropriation of funds. Is that a correct reading?
No, not exactly, no. In fact, where we have detailed design at the start of a long-term project, you will see it down to the penny and down to the 10%, down to that penny and cent. This is a very unique project with FedEx that required a master developer to complete it in a very, very short time frame. So I would say, Mayor, this is an anomaly for even IVDA.
So it's more like a bar tab.
No, it's more like a master developer.
We don't have master developers on SBCTA, so we don't see this. Any other questions? All right, my question is in regards to the additional 500,000, unexpected additional cost to meet the tenants' requirements?
Correct.
Okay. Will this impact the lease, the amount of money they will pay monthly in order to recoup the 500,000? Or being that this wasn't included in the original equation?
So this money we're talking about, as you see, it also requires modifications to the loan and note from SBIAA payable back to this body, increases that cost as well. So this money comes back to IVDA under those terms of that agreement. So adjustment here, there's an adjustment there. SBIAA, at its next meeting, will take commensurate action to reflect this change as well.
Very good. Just wanted that into the record. Yes, Popescu.
It's just a point of clarification. Is this the amount of money that, because it looks like it's coming from our reserve fund, is this the amount of money that Hillwood gave us as part of our joint project with them?
No, we actually still have money in the.
The answer is no.
Okay.
All right. At this time, if there are no further questions, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Move item number 9.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Any additional comments? Hearing none, item number 9 is approved. Item number 10, which is to consider and discuss the updated action plan for the Inland Valley Development Agency through December 31st of 2018. Mr. Burrows.
So I'll bring you to, well, I'll bring you back to the overhead, I hope. So this is where we are in September. Well, it's where we were in September. Go back to September. Okay. So many of your local agencies had an opportunity, as did our successor agency, to participate in the Countywide Oversight Board and what would have been the first amended ROPS. Those are typically filed in October. We have done so many times in the past. However, because of our current situation in successor agency, we have several matters subject of litigation, and those do not allow for provision of an amended ROPS. Therefore, we did not submit one at this time under the guidance of council. That's to be said. It looks as if, surprisingly, none of our other agencies did so either. So the Countywide Oversight Board then reconvenes again around the annual ROPS schedule, which will come back in the first part of next year. But in case you had questions, we did not file an amended ROPS in this cycle for that reason. And then secondly, the other item in the informational report is September is the date where we update our county or our comprehensive economic development strategy for the U.S. Department of Commerce. This is our eligibility for grant funding, and that is a plan that has been reviewed and inputted by your respective JPA staff. It is on track for completion and submission to EDA this month, and EDA has actually expressed appreciation for getting that submitted. This is a new 5-year update, and that'll get us up to speed and in compliance with Department of Commerce. So as you've requested, next month we have policies and procedures, and we'll include the additional item on local preference as requested. That concludes my report.
All right. Questions, board members? And is this a receive and file? All right. With that, are there any comments from board members?
Through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to reiterate once again that on October 6th, San Bernardino will be holding its annual Route 66, and also November 3rd and 4th will be the third year?
Fourth
of our fourth year of our Airfest.
All right, so that I'm not remiss, anyone from the public wishing to come forward and speak on an item that is on or off the agenda? And I know that one of these days, guys, we are all going to be surprised because someone is going to get up and have something legitimate to say about one of our board items. I feel the day is coming.
You bringing family in or something, or what?
I'm telling you, with this, I will close the public comment portion of this meeting, bring it back before this board, and this meeting is adjourned to our next regularly scheduled meeting of Wednesday, October 10th, God-given year 2018. Thank you very much.